Okay, so today we will start a fresh lecture on ionic solids, continuing from what we started in last class. We will continue talking about the stability for a little while, and then we will look at the rules of the formation of ionic solids. Okay, there are certain guidelines which need to be kept in mind while forming the ionic solid structures. So, what we were discussing in the last class is about the ionic bond, right? Ionic bond and its energy. Because eventually this is what determines whether your solid is going to be stable or not. So, energy was equal to N of epsilon j, and you have sum of j plus b I j divided by r I j to the power n, and this is basically for sum of you have attractive term here, this is attraction, and this is where you have repulsion, and balance of these two is going to determine how are they going to be assembled. So, there are two kinds of energies. Basically when you need to form a bond, you need to spend some energy, and then you gain the energy by putting them together. If they remain as isolated molecules, you do not gain that energy. So, it is a balance of these two energy which eventually determines whether a structure is stable or isolated molecule is stable. And it turns out there is a net attraction when you form a solid. So, you have overall energy landscape looks something like that. So, if you plot the energy as a function of separation distance, the overall energy looks something like this. Okay. And basically at certain separation distance r naught, you have net attraction between the components, and basically this is where the energy is equal to 0. So, this defines your let us say the equilibrium separation distance, and this is for instance for ionic solids like NaCl. NaCl has a distance of 236 picometer between the ions, and that basically implies that your solid is stable as an ensemble of molecules, structurally stable rather than isolated molecules being stable. So, isolated molecules obviously in comparison to this curve are going to have higher energy, as a result they are not stable. So, this equation gets modified to, so the modified form of this equation is E is equal to N minus of alpha q square divided by 4 pi epsilon naught r naught plus z lambda exponential of minus r divided by rho, okay, where alpha is something which is called as so basically again this is the repulsion term you can see, and it varies exponentially as a function of distance, and this is your attraction term, and this Madelung constant is defined as alpha is defined as epsilon I plus minus 1 over r I divided by r naught, and this is basically also called as rho I. So, basically alpha Madelung constant is a constant which depends upon the interaction between the ions. So, for example, you can put these ions like, so if this is a reference ion, let us say positive ion, then you are going to put all these ions in this fashion, let us say. So, you can make a 1D case of this ensemble of ions and calculate this value of alpha if you choose this as a reference for all the neighbors. Then alpha value will, so the first neighbor interaction, second neighbor interaction, third neighbor interaction, and so on and so forth. So, calculate this alpha value for each ion I, and the sign will determine on the sign on the charge of I ion itself. So if it's positive, the value will be positive. If it's negative, the value will be negative. So basically, it will form a series for if you take the first nearest neighbor, second nearest neighbor, third nearest neighbor, fourth nearest neighbor, and so on and so forth. It will form a series, and the series needs to be converged. Okay, so you'll see that you can form various configurations in 1D, then 2D, then 3D, and when you make these such series for 2D and 3D, series is not going to converge for all the configurations. It's going to converge only for certain configurations, which are going to be stable configurations. So this Madelung constant will determine whether the solid is stable or not. So for example, the values of alpha, if you take for NaCl and cesium chloride, let's say, and for zinc sulfide, NaCl, the value is nearly 1.748, 1.763, and here 638. So these are typical values of alpha that you get by summing over all the neighbors. So essentially, you can see that if your alpha value is large, the attraction term is large, and if your alpha value is low, then the attraction term is lower. You want this term to dominate. As a result, your for ionic solids which form a strong ionic bond, the sulfur term tends to be higher. Ionic bonds also tends to become stronger when the you can see that the Q square term here, right? This Q square term is basically the charge on each of the ion, right? So as the charge on each of the ion becomes more, this Q square also becomes larger. All right. So if you have, for example, EE, it will make E square. If you have 2E, 2E, it will make 4E square. So it increases quite substantially. So if you look at solids like, for example, NaCl, compare that with MgO, or compare that with Fe2O3, for instance, or compare that with Y2O3, and then TiO2, ZrO2. You can see that the charges are increasing, right? So you go from +1, -1 to +2, -2, 2 and 3, and then 4. Okay. So as a result, these solids tend to have higher ionic bond strength, and their melting points also tend to increase generally, in general speaking. Okay. So basically, when you look at ionic solids, they are nothing but ensemble of anions and cations. So as a result, electrostatistics or electrical neutrality and balance of forces requires you to follow certain guidelines, and there are some obvious things like you cannot put two cations together because there will be substantial repulsion. You cannot put similarly two anions together because there will be substantial repulsion. So there are certain guidelines which must be followed to build these structures. So what are these guidelines? We call them rules/guidelines, and they are called as Pauling's rules. Okay. So the first thing is anions and cations touch each other, and here we assume that they are hard spheres, and anions generally don't touch each other. They don't touch each other, but they may be close enough. Okay. So because the repulsive force typically tapers off exponentially, so as a result, little bit separation, the repulsive force will be tapered off. So anions don't touch each other, but could be close enough so that there is not very substantial and to minimize electrostatic energy, there should be maximum ligancy. Maximum ligancy means that each anion or cation should have maximum number of neighbors. The coordination number should be as high as possible, so that your electrostatic energy is minimum, and that makes sense. I mean, if you surround the cations by anions or anions by cations, there are more number of neighbors, the electrostatic energy is going to be minimum because they will attract each other. However, it is not all that simple, because there is also valence which plays an important role and size which plays an important role. So, this is determined typically by valence and size, and then you need to maintain the electrical neutrality. This is very important. Solid cannot be electrically non-neutral, it has to be electrically neutral, which means the total positive charge must be equal to total negative charge. That is a sacrosanct condition. So, let us see how do we go about making this structure. So, basically when you talk about charge neutrality, so for instance you have CaF2, okay. Ca has, it is a Ca plus 2 cation, it has plus 2 charge, and fluorine is minus 1, you have 2 of minus 1, you have minus 2, net charge is equal to 0. Same is true about MgO, Mg is plus 2, oxygen is minus 2, net charge is equal to 0. And other examples are TiO2, you have Al2O3 for example, Al2O3 where Al is plus 3, oxygen is minus 2. So, plus 3 into 2 is plus 6, minus 3, minus 2 into 3 is minus 6, net is equal to 0. So, this electrical neutrality, the net charge in the structure should be equal to 0. Now, so general form you can write AM, let us say AMXP, okay, or AMXN, where M and N are governed by electrical neutrality, right. So, depending upon the valence and electrical neutrality, and then stability of structure. So, when you have, for example, there are few configurations. So, let us say you have these big ions, okay, these are cations, anions, sorry. So, you have these anions and you have very tiny cation sitting somewhere here. Now, if you have such a tiny cation somewhere here, so this is plus, this is sorry, generally anions are bigger. So, this is minus, 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 and this is, let us say, cation. Another configuration is you have an anion which is cation which is nearly, which is touching the anions like this. So, in this case your anion is cation is very small as compared to anions, and it is not touching the anions. And then you have another structure in which you have this as a cation, one of your anion is like this, one of your anion is like this another is like this. So, this could form a stable structure given that there is little bit of difference between the cations and the anions, and cations are touching the anions. So, this could be stable structure, this could be stable structure, but this is not a stable structure because here the cation is very small and it allows, so there is a violation of the guideline that cations and anions must touch each other. So, that is where the size plays an important role. What kind of size will determine how many neighbors will you have, so that you have this structural stability, so that you have cations and anions touching each other and anions are farther away from each other by a tiny distance, so that there is no net anionic repulsion. So, as a result there is something called as guidelines regarding coordination ratio. So, coordination number and radius ratio, So to make stable structures with the following the above guidelines, where cations and anions must touch each other, and there should be maximum possible neighbors that are possible. So basically you need to calculate what is R cation to R anion. This is called as radius ratio, and this radius ratio will determine how many nearest neighbors will you have by which will make a stable structure. So for example, there are various kind of ratios which are possible. So if I take, let us say, this as RR, so RR when it is less than 0.155, which means when the cation is very small as compared to anions, in that case coordination number which is preferred, so I can write this as Cn. Let me also modify this little bit, this is RR. So in this case coordination number 2 that is preferred, this is called as linear coordination, okay. And here basically what you have an anion, then you have a tiny cation, and then you have a anion. So if I just choose a different color, this would be cation and these would be anions. So this is called as linear coordination. Second guideline is between 0.155 to 0.225. So when the cation ratio, anion to anion radius ratio is between 0.155 to 0.225, then you tend to have a threefold or a triangular coordination. So in this manner what you will have is, first make a cation. So this is the cation I have, and the anion would be, one anion would be here, another anion would be here, and the third anion would be here. So if the radius ratio is between, not a very pretty picture, let me draw it again, something like that. There should be sufficient enough separation, they are not exactly touching each other, but small enough, right, small separation. And this is your cation, this is triangular coordination. So basically they make a triangle, and between that you have this cation. Third one is, say when RR is between 0.225 to 0.414. So if you recall, 0.225 was the size of tetrahedral atom that could fit into a tetrahedral void of a close packed structure, and 0.414 was the size of octahedral. So here the cation is smaller enough so that it can fit into tetrahedral void but not into octahedral. In such a situation the coordination number tends to be 4, and this is called as tetrahedral coordination. So basically what you will have is, you will have these anions and you will have a cation sitting here which is touching them, and there will be another anion sitting on top of it. So this will make a tetrahedral coordination, and this is followed in materials like, as we will see later on, for example zinc sulphide. Okay. Fifth one is called 0.4142 to 0.732. So this is bigger than octahedral, this is called as six-fold or octahedral. So if the radius ratio is larger than 0.414 but lower than 0.732, then this is going to follow six-fold coordination. So here basically what you are going to have, you are going to have an octahedra. So this is your octahedra basically. So, if I draw the top view of an octahedra, there is the, so first atom, so second atom, you will have a 1 at the base, you will have 1 on the top. Okay. Your central atom is going to sit somewhere here. This is going to be cation. So, this is octahedral, and this is followed by materials such as sodium chloride and all that. So, sodium chloride has octahedral coordination, MgO has octahedral coordination, and so on and so forth. And when your radius ratio is between 0.732 to 1, then the materials tend to follow 8-fold coordination, which is cubic coordination. So, essentially what you are going to have here is you have the first layer of atoms like this, you have the second layer of atoms like this, and between these two layers you will have a cation sitting. So, obviously anions are not exactly touching each other. So, this is followed by things like cesium chloride. Okay. And then when you have 1, anions are generally bigger than cations. So, but in some cases they can be some exceptions. In that case you tend to follow a 12-fold coordination, which is the close pack coordination that you have. Okay. So, 12-fold is basically I think cuboctahedron or something like that, similar to CCP/HCP coordination. Okay. So, these are the guidelines for radius ratios, which give you certain configurations which make energetically stable configurations. So, you can see that in all of these, what it tells you basically is that if you look at the guidelines tell you that anions and cations touch each other, anions do not touch, but generally should be close enough, and you should have maximum ligancy to minimize the electrostatic energy. So, but all of this cannot be possible without following these rules, because if the cation is very small, anion is very large, then obviously anions and cations will not touch each other if you have too many anions surrounding a cation. So, depending upon the size, there is a certain limitation on the maximum number of neighbors that one atom can have. As a result, these structures follow these rules. So, for example, if you look at example of FeO, so if you look at various cations like Al3 plus, Al3 plus has a radius of 0.053 nanometer, and this is Rc. Okay. Then Fe2 plus has a radius of 0.077 nanometer, Fe3 plus has a radius of 0.069 nanometer, Ca2 plus has a ratio of 0.100, and so on and so forth. If you look at not just FeO example, just few examples. Okay. So, and then anions, various anions have, oxygen has a radius of 0.14, chlorine has a radius of 0.181, and fluorine has a radius of 0.133. So, let us say first we want to say take example of FeO. Okay. If you take example of FeO, Fe has a radius of 0.077 and oxygen has a radius of 0.14, and the radius ratio that you obtain is nearly 0.55. So, if you go back to previous table, where does 0.55 fit in? It fits in here. So, which means FeO should have octahedral coordination of cations. Okay, coordination, octahedral coordination. But if let us say oxygen, if Fe is surrounded by Fe is surrounded by 6O, And based on the stoichiometry, what do you obtain for oxygen? How many oxygen is going to be surrounded by how many ions? How many ions will surround one oxygen? What is the stoichiometry? For each Fe you have 1:1. The charges are 1:1. So what is the coordination you expect? So coordination number of Fe is equal to 6. Coordination number of oxygen for oxygen will also be 6. They will have to maintain. So this is for charges. The valence electrons, okay. The valency basically, right, plus 2 electrons you have which can give, 2 electrons it can take, right. So valences are maybe N is not the right letter for this. I can write valence of Fe with respect to valency of oxygen, that is also 1:1. So coordination number should also be equal. You will see, for example, in case of CaF2, calcium has a radius of 0.1, fluorine has a radius of 0.133, and this will make nearly, if I just take a little bit of calculation, it is 0.75. If you look at 0.75, this is here. So it tends to follow 8-fold coordination. So you have coordination number of cation is 8, but CaF2 has a number of Ca2, number of F2 is equal to Fe is equal, F is equal to, for one calcium there are 2 fluorines. Valence wise, calcium has +2, fluorine has -1. So if number of atoms and the number of valences are now uneven, then coordination number is also going to be uneven. So each calcium is surrounded by 8 fluorine, but each fluorine is going to be surrounded by 4 calcium, okay. Then only it is going to be electrically neutral. So this is required for electrical neutrality to maintain the, we will see some of these examples in the coming slides, okay. So we will finish here, we will start our next lecture with the structure of other ionic solids, okay.